Mission 14 was not your average trip for the Twin Tiers Honor Flight. This weekend, the buses to Washington, D.C. were filled with all-female veterans, guardians, and staff, a first for the organization.
I was honored to be asked about Honor Flight because, to me, it's the first time that people have recognized that women serve their country in many, many different ways.
The trip began with a motorcycle send-off, along with wisdom from World War II veteran Harold Gary.
God bless you. Have a great trip.
The first stop at our nation's capital was the Navy Memorial and Museum. The group then made their way to the Lincoln Memorial, Korean War Memorial, and Vietnam Wall, where they were able to complete etchings of those they knew.
There it is, George Clinton.
Many stopped to see the Vietnam Women's Memorial, a personal touch for those who related to the women in bronze.
Everything is just so beautiful. I've never been to D.C. before, so this was really special.
Next stop was the Marine Corps Memorial, a replica of the Pulitzer Prize-winning photo from Iwo Jima, and then a final stop for the day at the Air Force Memorial. After dinner, the Vietnam veterans received lapel pins from the Vietnam War commemoration, recognition the women did not receive when they returned home. The evening also included the gifting of handmade quilts and beautiful wooden hearts.
I was very emotional, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful trip.
Day 2 began with a stop at the World War II Memorial before heading to Arlington National Cemetery. While there, the women witnessed the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. 4 women also participated in a wreath-laying ceremony.
It was the most wonderful, marvelous thing that ever happened to me.
A group of students stopped to thank the veterans for their service with handshakes and hugs. The final stop of the trip was at the Women's Memorial and Museum, where many found their own stories in the archives and reflected on the legacy of those before them.
It's just a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I'm just so honored and humbled by the reception that we've had.
The women arrived home to a hero's welcome as family, friends, and the community came to the American Legion, the Stars and Stripes waving in abundance. A powerful end to an unforgettable weekend.
We are truly in this state in the middle of a tech revolution. And sometimes you look back through history, you're not aware that you're going through some seismic change.
Artificial intelligence, defined in the Merriam-Webster dictionary as the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior, is the catalyst for much of that change. It's leading to transformation in all fields, from communications to banking, transportation, and education.
AI is intruding upon, improving upon, and impacting nearly every area of our lives. Society truly is not yet ready for its impacts.
I think most of us have been hearing about AI for a while. Certainly, we've seen the science fiction movies. But it wasn't until this past fall, October, November, right around coming up to Christmas time, that we started to see new tools that were very easy to use natural language, and leveraged all this machine learning that we're seeing in AI.
And so when you start to have these conversations, off the bat, are they ones of concern? Are they ones of excitement? Are they both?
They're both. And of course, the whole spectrum, challenges and opportunities.
James Pittaresi is the Vice Provost of Online and Innovative Education at Binghamton University.
I don't think there's need for panic, but I do think there's need for conversation.
He sees AI as a tool to be harnessed correctly.
I think, for instance, in the class I teach on innovation, it's a wonderful tool for brainstorming and helping generate ideas, get the creative juices flowing, and from there, build on it.
But Sarah Bulb, the director of the Writing Studies minor, says it's vital some policing is in place to encourage individual and critical thinking.
Where it starts to become a concern is when then we're turning it in and putting our name on it and saying this is ours when we didn't create it. It's not an expression of our voice.
She says writing and expressing oneself will always have a place in our society, so it's important to talk about how AI can boost that, not replace it.
we really started putting this emphasis on how can we have students using classroom time to engage with their ideas and their critical thinking, and how can we, talk with them about their goals as writers, about how they want to come to their voice, and thinking more about, are there ways to use generative AI that are not misrepresenting it as their own ideas, but that they're helping them.
That's why, at the governor's request, SUNY has formed an AI research group to help chart a course for future strategy in pursuing AI research, education, policy, and workforce development.
I hope even in 50 years, no matter where we go with this, that I'm still just saying, I want you to have ideas and I want you to research and figure out why you believe what you believe, question those things and think of your perspectives and how you want to articulate those perspectives to the rest of the world, your audience and your reader.
It's here. How do we use it intelligently? How do we go in and help everyone, instructors and students, administrators, understand the risks, the benefits, how to best use it to improve our mission, which is really, to help educate citizens of the state.
We know these conversations are happening here on college campuses, but they're also happening elsewhere.
The tools in which we use to learn or to teach definitely are changing, right? And that's changing overnight. It's
change that Binghamton High School principal Kevin Richmond says educators need to embrace.
We have to adapt with the times. I don't believe anyone in education can ever get to the point where they stop learning, they stop growing. We need to adapt, we need to move with our kids. Education as a whole has changed from 30, 40, 50 years ago. There are new things that have occurred every single year. AI is just another one of those things.
He's a member of a newly formed AI task force in the Southern Tier that is looking to answer the question, what role does AI have in the classroom?
Am I, as a student, allowed to write an essay using ChatGPT?
We don't ever want a situation where a student is just using AI and then passes that off as their original work. However, I do think there's a place for AI in our education world. And so the reality is how do we get a student to use it as a piece of their writing or in addition to?
While there are AI detectors, Richmond says they aren't always reliable, but says the best detector is the teacher themselves, knowing their students.
Have them write in pencil or pen their original writing. Then if you get a piece of paper down the road that you can compare it to their original writing, now you know whether it's their tone, their writing, their language, or if it's something that's completely, over the top.
He says as of right now, the use of AI is up to the individual teacher, and the core standards remain in place when it comes to a student's education.
AI is only as good as the human who's using it, right? So we have to be able to teach those critical skills, those problem-solving skills, because without that, they can't do AI. Right? So it's really important that we understand as education, AI is not replacing teachers. AI is not replacing education. It is a tool, a piece to help us learn.
And it's not just for the students. Richmond says it's a tool that can benefit teachers with a number of AI programs created by teachers for teachers. Richmond tries to share a new tool every staff meeting and will host a professional development day all on AI in December.
We always say for education, we need more time, over time. AI is really allowing for that to happen.
This is new. This is scary. We've always done it this way. Right. Why do you think it's important to kind of fall into step and realize this is where the future is going? We need to be in line with that.
I think the hardest part of anything new is just starting, right? And if we can put our fear to the side and just say this is something new, let's try it out, I think people will be pleasantly surprised at how much it can help.
So let's go ahead and take a look at page 26.
Jeff Pryor is the Director of Reentry Services for Broome County.
So we really want to focus on what is your life going to look like.
98% of the people that go to prison and jail are eventually coming home.
For a decade, he's been helping people make a better life after incarceration. The reentry program helps address barriers they face, like finding housing and employment.
If we don't do something to help them start their lives over and reestablish and put the money and the effort in our community, we're just pushing ourselves backwards.
But as Reverend Dr. Greg Johnson describes, there's only so much someone can do when they still wear paper handcuffs.
When you are formerly incarcerated and you have to fill out a job application and you have to indicate that you have been convicted or you have a criminal background, those are paper handcuffs.
You can't escape your record. It's always there.
Back in 2011, Seth says he was at the height of his addiction.
My heroin addiction just spiraled so quickly. out of control that, it was costing hundreds of dollars a day, to feed the addiction.
He was convicted of burglary and grand larceny, leaving him with a felony record. After completing drug court and probation, he got used to hearing one answer when applying for jobs.
I got denied. Once you click the box that you're a felon, the chances of getting a call back are, slim to none.
And Seth is not alone. The ACLU estimates nationally, excluding individuals with conviction histories from the workforce, cost the economy between $78 and $87 billion in lost domestic product.
Why would we continually punish them because they went to prison 15 years ago, have been out of prison for 12 years, now to judge them against their past?
Currently 2 subdivisions of the criminal procedure law.
A 2017 New York state law allows for criminal records to be permanently sealed after either 1, completing a sanctioned drug program, or 2, being crime-free for 10 years post-parole or probation. While an estimated 600,000 New Yorkers are eligible, Broome County Public Defender Mike Baker says only 1 to 5% go through the process.
In our experiences, sometimes it's taken us many months to create one of these motions. Moreover, because of the pandemic, the courts are so far behind that it takes a long time for these motions to get decided.
Advocates demand more be done to expedite a lengthy and costly legal battle. Baker says the Clean Slate Act would streamline the process, so many of the steps are automatic. The legislation as it stands, Senate Bill 1553, would seal conviction records after 3 years for misdemeanors and 7 years for felonies. Excluded would be people permanently on the sex offender registry, anyone currently on probation or parole supervision, and those with pending state criminal charges. Senator Fred Akshar says while we need to help reintegrate people after incarceration, he has some concerns, stating, quote, "Not every crime, large or small, is equal in the eyes of our justice system. Yet the Clean Slate Bill, as written, treats nearly every crime, no matter how severe, as the same. It does nothing to separate nonviolent crime from violent crime," end quote. However, Baker says these definitions become extremely complicated.
A lot of what's considered violent crime is not, in fact, violent.
He describes a scenario in which an addict steals pills from a family member's home.
Under the law, that could be considered a burglary second of violent crime.
We've all made mistakes, all of us. And unfortunately and particularly black and brown communities, those mistakes are amplified.
A lot of people end up in the criminal justice system because of toxic relationships and being forced into doing something that they don't normally want to do. Or they're under some, because of the power of addiction makes people do things that they wouldn't ever do before.
A decade later, Seth and his wife have had their records sealed.
It allows me to just easily, stay employed, for my wife to stay employed, and, to provide for both of our children.
While the future of the legislation remains in the hands of lawmakers in Albany, some people in the southern tier have hope.
It's something that is powerful. It is redemptive. It offers redemptive power to people who really, really want to turn their lives around.
I truly believe people can change, but if we don't give them the opportunity to change, it's not going to happen.
For Rebecca Roden, serving in the U.S. Armed Forces was a family affair.
My father did it, and it was what I felt I needed to do.
As a Navy corpsman, she spent her whole service at Bethesda Naval Hospital.
I really learned a lot about myself and about the medical field and how much I enjoyed it. But, unfortunately, I carry a lot of what happened in the military with me.
She was diagnosed with reoccurring major depressive disorder.
My psychiatrist in the military told me, "You'll be home 6 months and you'll be just fine."
But as Roden says, it wasn't fine, and she struggled for many years.
The older I got, I noticed the worse my symptoms got. I stopped wanting to go out of the house. I started seeing what I thought were people. Turned out it was just my imagination. We would go places together, and I would begin to have panic attacks.
Roden's experience is unfortunately not unique. In 2000, Jeff Kreider joined the Armed Forces as a member of the reserves. It wasn't until 9/11 that everything changed.
We were supposed to only be there for 6 months, but we got extended twice.
During both extensions, men he knew were killed.
We lost one of our guys to vehicle accidents, and my team leader to a mortar attack the day before he left. to come home. And that's where part of my PTSD comes from.
He says for a few years, things were fine. He was in and out of counseling until 2016, when things took a turn.
I had anger management issues I had to deal with that I was bottling up and not doing anything about until I finally hit rock bottom and tried to kill myself because of an issue with my son that I scared him so much that he didn't want to see me anymore.
We spend weeks teaching them how to go to war and kill people, but we don't teach them how to decompress and come back to real life. We don't give them a boot camp for getting out.
Michael Madaw is the director of Veteran Services for Tioga County, and he wants veterans to know there is help.
It's not a handout, it's a hand up. It's veterans taking care of veterans, and that's what this job is all about.
He and his team assist veterans in navigating the system.
The system is extremely bureaucratic. It's a lot of paperwork. It's hard to understand the rules and regulations.
They help vets file for claims and better understand their benefits, serving as accredited service representatives. The Binghamton VA Outpatient Clinic currently serves around 4,200 veterans with mainly primary care and mental health services. Medical Director Dr. David Hunsinger says the biggest hurdle is getting the vet to the services they need.
Very few places actually have public transportation. If someone has a vision impairment or a handicapping condition, they may not be able to drive themselves.
But it's not just county and national entities working to serve our local vets once they return home and for years after. Benjamin Margolius served in the military for nearly 30 years and is now the president of the Southern Tier Veteran Support Group.
So we're able to help veterans with a wide range of things, whether it be rent or security deposits or mortgages or some medical issues. It's good to have this community that we can rely upon to help us help the veterans.
Community is what Frances McMahon has created through her nonprofit, Stand With Me.
I can see the difference between the veteran that I meet on day one and the veteran that graduates 1 to 2 years later.
Through the program, veterans with a mental health disability train their own service dog. Rebecca and Jeff are both graduates with their dogs, Ruger and Abby.
This guy can handle anything, and it makes it so I can handle anything.
It can have an unbelievable, life-changing impact on a veteran's life.
For Rebecca and Jeff, life continues on, but with some nightmares that will never go away.
There's still days like that, and I think that we'll all struggle with that.
It's okay to be emotional.
But now there are many good days filled with hope.
My life is a totally different chapter.
You know, in the military, you got a buddy, and that buddy always has your back. She's my buddy.
You don't have to suffer in silence. You're not in this alone. We'll do everything we can to meet whatever the need is. Just call.
No man is going to tell another of God's creation that they do not belong and that they cannot be.
Cave James says education was always at the forefront of their activism.
In their union, they did not have any children, but they adopted a lot of young people in the community. They sponsored people in college. They did a lot of things that nobody knew about. They didn't advertise it.
Empowering young people still to this day.
To preserve what we have.
And that is what this year's event is all about, highlighting the importance of these organizations and institutions right here in the Southern Tier. They will do this through presentations and guest speakers who will share their personal experiences. One of those guest speakers is Sandra Love, a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She joined back in college as a way to serve the community while celebrating her faith. From the beginning, his goal has been to help people and communities impacted by the criminalization of marijuana. When the shop first opened as a CBD store last year, they helped 17 people start the process of expunging their records through a workforce initiative grant.
Different perspectives to.
And Kiro Nzigwu is more than just a professor. She's a painter, a philosopher, author, and curator. Born in Nigeria, she was a producer of a popular radio program before getting her PhD in philosophy from the University of Ottawa. She began teaching at Binghamton University in 1990. As the sun came up at the Greater Binghamton Regional Airport, over 50 veterans from across the Twin Tiers boarded their flight to Washington, D.C. Upon touchdown, there was a water cannon salute and a warm welcome to our nation's capital. Buses were loaded, and it was off to the National Mall.
Go Navy!
Michael Brand, Thomas Brand, and Richard Brand all served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. Their brother Fred joined them on the honor flight as a guardian. While the day was filled with lots of laughs and smiles, the visit to the Vietnam Wall could only be described by one word.
Brutal. One word. Brutal for me.
The symptoms are controlled enough because of Abby's presence that he's able to participate at this point.
Their hope now that this marks a new chapter for veterans and honor flights for years to come.
Hopefully it'll show that veterans with service dogs can go on honor flights, and I don't know if that's been a deterrent in the past, but they can go.